Okay.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Third Legacy Committee workshop this month on the principles of the 12 steps. And this month's principle is perseverance. And um, we have some experts in the room to talk about that. So I'm going to turn it over to Stephen.
Thank you. I'm Steve, alcoholic,
Hey, Steve.
and I think the experts are, hey, Josephine, I think the experts are on the screen today. But at any rate, I thought we'll go around and introduce ourselves, and I'll go around the table here, and then I'll hit the Zoom board. And again, I'm Steve, alcoholic.
Cindy, alcoholic.
Sprout, alcoholic.
Scala.
Claudia, alcoholic.
Nancy, alcoholic.
John, alcoholic.
Josephine, alcoholic.
Marty, alcoholic.
And again, welcome to everyone. So today we're talking about perseverance. And I wanted to start with just a definition, which is persistence in doing something despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. And here's an opinion for you. I think that maybe alcoholics, more so than others, have more experience with the dynamic of perseverance than maybe anyone else. Personally, and from many stories I've heard, we have persevered through the years in trying to make our lives work. Great difficulties, always hoping we'd achieve success, and yet one more drink, one more drunk, one more emotional tragedy, and persevere we would. So I think that the whole dynamic of perseverance, the whole principle of perseverance, that we have tremendous understanding in how that works. And we also have tremendous understanding in the misuse of it. So it's not a new thing. It's just we've misused it. And I should probably just keep things to myself, like I have misused it. And when I think back, both before AA and during AA, I have so much familiarity with perseverance, with just this idea way in the back of my head, even that I can figure this out. Somehow I'll make it work. I'll just keep doing what doesn't work until it does work. And of course, it never does. And the little story I want to tell about perseverance, which I just remembered when I was kind of looking at the dynamic of that principle yesterday and today, is when I used to tell my story, I would say, well, I came in, my last drink was in a parking lot of an AA club, and I went to that meeting, drunk, but I went to a meeting every day for the next 3 years. I really don't think there was a day I missed. And I didn't like it. I didn't do the steps. I never really considered sponsorship because I was too smart to need a sponsor. And I wasn't worried about the God stuff. I was raised in the parochial system, and I didn't have a problem with it. It just didn't work for me. And as I look back, as I was thinking today, I persevered through that time until I saw people getting well, and I knew I wasn't in that crowd. And finally, like so many of our stories are the same, we got help, and then it's just a matter of what degree of wellness we've achieved and are still achieving. But that perseverance, that moving along despite difficulties, it's who knows better than alcoholics on how to do that, before and after the steps. And it changed. It changed. Like I used to think that first 3 years, it's not the best word to use, is like wasted, because I was going to AA, I made friends, I didn't drink, I made coffee, I emptied ashtrays, I did all that kind of normal stuff. But I didn't get well. But I persevered, and the dynamics of Alcoholics Anonymous, the recovery program, just from going to meetings, it brought me to a place where I was teachable. And so I have a new way of thinking of those first few years, which I used to think, what, how come I couldn't come into AA and people said, here's what you do to get well, and that's what I would do. It's just I persevered with an old way of thinking. And in today, it's a long time later, I can still find that principle of perseverance active in my life, still in both ways, in misuse and proper use. And there's this line in the book that talks about the proper use of our will. And I try to go back to that when I have sobriety of mind, and think, why don't I persevere with a dynamic that people for 90 years have said works, instead of trying my own way. And so I get to see tremendous, at least for me, tremendous opportunity to grow. And 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 of we've been doing this. Oh, and thanks Marty and Claudia for and representing District 46 in these Third Legacy meetings. Of all the principles we've studied so far, we are at number 10, and perseverance, after looking at it, is the one I have the most familiarity with, because even as a little kid, I would persevere. Again, I'd misuse it, but I'd still do it. So that's a little story from me today. And so that's that. And generally what we do in this Third Legacy meeting is we're loose with crosstalk. We try and have everybody has an opportunity to share anything they want to about perseverance. No particular order, but often we start with Claudia because she's always on the mark. So that's it. That means Claudia, you're up.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. My name is Claudia. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Claudia.
I was thinking about this topic, and I had a couple different perspectives of it. And the first had to do with my initial introduction to Alcoholics Anonymous. What it took to become a member, what it took to continue my participation in it. To set the scene, I got sober October 7th, 1990. My last drunk was sometime right before or shortly after midnight on the 6th of October. I came out of a blackout on Sunday morning on my living room floor, trying to put the pieces together. And I was done. I had a moment of clarity. I couldn't do what I was doing anymore. And I called Alcoholics Anonymous at 6 o'clock in the morning, and someone answered, and I went to my first meeting that afternoon at 4 o'clock. I was a single mom. I worked 50 hours a week. I dropped my kids off at daycare at 7:30 in the morning, and I picked them up at 6 o'clock at night, 5 days a week. Every other weekend, my ex-husband had the kids. That morning, I had to drive 20 miles with a hangover and pick them up and take them to Sunday school, and then 20 miles back to their father's. He wouldn't take them to Sunday school. And I went to that meeting, and he came off later, and I a list of people's names. I had a recommendation of where to go the next night for a meeting. I had to find someone to kids. I know people took their kids. I've heard stories over the years. It was 8 o'clock. Most of the meetings were at 8 o'clock at night on school nights. That wasn't an option. So I had next door neighbors, and they didn't have a washer and dryer, and I let them use my washer and dryer, which was in the basement of the apartment building, in exchange for watching my kids. I had a friend that I would take my kids and pick her and her son up and bring them to my house. And then I'd have to take the kid, put everybody in the car, and take them home when I got home from the meetings. But I had this perseverance. I had this drive, this need to continue doing what I was doing. I didn't drink. I didn't drink. I wasn't drinking a day at a time. And up until that day, I had been a daily drinker. For several years, I had been a daily drinker. I mean, I had drunk for years and years, but the last 3 years of my drinking was daily, was making horrible decisions, on the verge of losing another job. But I continued to do it. They said to get a sponsor. While I found one, she didn't work out. I got a different one. Nobody told me 90 and 90. I may have been in too much of a fog, but I went to as many meetings per week as I physically could. I started hanging out with a few other newcomers. I'd make arrangements when my kids were with their dad, or I had a babysitter, and we'd go to meetings together. And I didn't sit down with a roadmap. I didn't sit down and say, how am I going to do this? Or somebody told me this was going to work. From somewhere deep down inside, some would say it was from the outside in. I persevered. I needed to continue doing what I was doing because I ran out of good ideas to do it any other way. And I wasn't drinking. I met Marty. Things changed in my life. I lost a job. I got a different job. But even with all of that going on, working and kids and being a responsible parent and no longer being that mom who put my kids in the car when I had been drinking, I continued doing what I was doing. So when I think of perseverance, it wasn't like I was trying to achieve something. It wasn't like I was persevering because I knew there was an ultimate goal. What I seemed to be doing was working. And it continued to work. And when they said, do the steps, and the sponsor, after about a year, we decided it was time for me to do the steps. And we did. And she took me through the 4th and the 5th. And even after that, things started to change and within me and who I was. And I knew it was a very positive interpretation of the word perseverance. I know what the negative perspective of perseverance is, and I think I mentioned it at the Sunday morning with my apple peeler. I was trying to remove the part of the apple peeler that causes it to cut the core out. I didn't want to cut the core out. I just wanted to peel it. And it has a wing nut. And as Marty has so lovingly told me, that we do have a little pliers in the drawer that I could unscrew the wing nut. Neither did I seek out a pliers, nor did I ask my husband, who was sitting in the other room. I just almost gave myself blisters on my fingers, and I could not get it. I persevered. That to me is what the negative interpretation is. I'm not going to ask for help. I know I can do it myself. I have a thing I want to accomplish, and I'm going to accomplish it. Even when everything to the contrary says you can't do this alone. You can't do this without help. And if I look at the big picture of my life, I see where the perseverance, the need to do it, the drive to get something done requires help, requires asking for help. It requires a willingness and readiness to accept it. In sobriety, I have earned multiple academic. I went back to school to get an MBA. And raising 3 kids. On half the time we're raising kids, and I go back to school. And I succeeded, and I thought, job should I get? What should I? And between Marty and I, we also decided I should just continue going to school. And I persevered. 3 teenagers. I went back to school, got a PhD. Got a really neat job. And I persevered. But that character defect that turns, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's fear. I don't know if it's ego, selfishness, self-centered, whatever the character defect is. And I'll finish this up. There are character defects that take that concept of perseverance and hard work and that willingness to do this to that point where I continue doing it past its shelf life. 10 years into teaching, sponsoring women, having a sponsor, going to meeting, having 3 kids, a husband who's gone half the time, 3 dogs, having to sit on 7 committees at the university, teaching, trying to do research. I can do this. I can do this. I can do anything. And it was making me crazy. I was waking up in the morning, already stressed out, already feeling like I was behind in everything I had to do that day. And I thought, I can persevere. I can go through that. I had this brilliant therapist. I went to a university. At the university, there was somebody that I could go talk to, a therapist. And I sat down and I said, you know, I wake up sometimes and I think, I really don't want to be doing this anymore. And he said, then why are you doing this? And it was because I felt like I needed to. I needed to prove something. I needed to persevere. And that was the realization that I literally got up one morning and said, I don't want to do this anymore. And I didn't. I said, you know, Marty and I had an agreement that I was going to stop once it stopped being wonderful. So I'll finish with that I can have that positive experience of perseverance until my ego, until my fear, until my self-centeredness kicks in and says that continuing on past a useful shelf life is not perseverance, is not that positive character. It's whatever that character defect, the opposite of that looks like. So sorry to go on for so long, but that really is what perseverance looks like to me. And I will pass. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Claudia, again for your insights. And in part of your story, you mentioned a washer and a dryer down your basement. And I see John F's on the screen, and he's down his basement. I know he's got a washer and dryer down there.
And you'd be right. You'd be right. Just when I'm about to have a breathing attack. Well, I'm John. I'm an alcoholic. And you know, oftentimes I will say when maybe I'm asked to lead a meeting or something, and I'll just say the first thing out of my mouth is, you know, coming to AA has been the second best thing I've ever done in my life. And then I'll say the first best thing I've done is sticking with it. And so in the general scope, you know, I have persevered, and I've made all, and I've through all my detours, and I've made many, many, many detours. I eventually got back on track, you know. Um, and it's weird. It's weird because when you look it up, you know, perseverance, it says to keep going, to continue. And what we've heard is that, and it's what A is when I stop the detours, it tells me I'm going about this wrong. You know, I'm going about this wrong. It's like I'm on I-5 and I'm driving north and heading towards, you know, Vancouver, BC, but when it turns out where I really want to go is San Diego, that I must turn around and do things differently. Uh, It because it's not possible. It's not possible to continue even when I'm not drinking. That's the weird thing. Because when I came into AA, I was so sure. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's as far as my brain could handle. I didn't want to hear, and I didn't want to hear about anything else. Don't, I'll go to the meetings, and I did go to meetings, but I used it like a methadone clinic, just, you know, one meeting to the next, to the next, to the next. I just didn't think I needed to change, really. I thought I was young enough where I just caught it in time in that sense. But it caught up with me, and I eventually realized that I need to turn around, and it's okay. And so that's what it's been like the last 10 years, really. And this drive, this drive can be looked at like that's what you know, this managing my life. It's just not going to work. This self-centeredness, you know, and then the idea is to get you know, get my drive and power from a higher source. It's not the same. Very different. Very different. And to trust this, even when it doesn't make sense, you know, or when it's uncomfortable. There we go. There we're getting into some perseverance. Largely it's trusting. Trusting doesn't make sense. I don't like this feeling. I don't like forgiving this person because they really did mess up. It doesn't make sense. Why would I forgive them? You know? Why would I accept that? It's wrong. But to trust, you know, eventually it comes around. It's like, oh, well, first of all, it feels so much better. It really does. Sobriety feels better when I do it that way, you know. Sanity feels better. A lot better. But I didn't know that initially. I didn't know that I kind of had to do it to find out. Then it becomes one of the most delicious things I've ever tasted, really. You know. All right, that's enough for me. Thank you.
Thanks, John. And Cindy?
Oh, yikes. Hi, Cindy, alcoholic.
Hey, Cindy.
Boy. Yeah. Perseverance. Okay, I'm having a hard time here. The I've done a lot of stuff in my life because of perseverance. It's definitely that I've learned that to get someplace, it's one step at a time. And you know, I've done some pretty cool things in my life because of that, and I'm proud of that. And maybe I needed to go through that so that when I got in AA, I could do the little steps to get to the bigger accomplishments. The bigger accomplishments being a sense of freedom, I guess. And that it had to start it had to start with getting rid of the drug, getting rid of the alcohol, and the, the whole idea of one day at a time, and just don't drink to your next meeting, and then don't drink to your next meeting. That's about all I could focus on at first. And that, and the drive to do that. Oh my goodness. All of a sudden, I mean, it was kind of like, I wasn't in control. That, yeah, that, so, boy, I never thought of it that way before, that all the time of learning to take one step at a time to go forward, that's what, so far, that's what this has all been for, so I could do it now. So that, meditating every day is not, that's a struggle for me. And the perseverance of doing it every day, I can't even tell you what I'm getting out of it, to tell you the truth. Except for that, I continue to feel more freedom. And yeah, and to see, I don't know, to see things I've never seen before. So that's all I got. That's kind of weird.
Thanks, Cindy. And Marty?
Well, thank you, Steve. Thank you very much. My name's Marty. I am an alcoholic.
Marty?
And thanks for everyone that's in service to the meeting, and thank you for those that have shared. Yeah, that's as usual, Claudia hit the nail on the head. And I was thinking about, my case is different, which is always my story, right? So, and I was thinking about how I failed to persevere. You know, that was the story of my life. I was a quitter. When things got, when what is the saying? The when the tough gets going or something, I was the one that when the going got tough, that's when I bailed out, always on everything. And except, of course, my pursuit of the next drink. That's the one thing I persevered at. And as you were reading the definitions, I was thinking, it's a continued effort to do or achieve something despite difficulties, failure, or opposition, the action or condition of an instance of persevering. And of course, when I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous by a friend, I was struggling with control, and he took me to AA. And I remember how much I enjoyed that first meeting, and the people there. They obviously had found the solution. But I didn't really follow any suggestions, and I didn't persevere. And I ended up relapsing after 30 days. Or I should say, I don't know if relapse is the right word. I just wasn't ready yet. I picked up a drink, and I spent a couple of months to find a sufficient bottom. Then when I came back into the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous, um, and someone 12-step me that day, and I started this process for the first time, I began to persevere at something which wasn't really comfortable. It wasn't really comfortable to be bare my soul, to confess my sins, so to speak, through the process of the steps, to admit complete defeat, to surrender. It was very uncomfortable, but despite that opposition, I persevered, and thank goodness. I can't say that I take a lot of credit for it. I think I was influenced heavily by those that I met in Alcoholics Anonymous. I wasn't convinced that this worked, except that I watched them, and it obviously did, and but of course the old me would say, but it won't work for me. It won't work for me. But I persevered nevertheless, and it's amazing. When I heard this recently, don't leave till the miracle happens, which we've heard all many times, and um, I think that's where the perseverance comes in. Persevere until the miracle happens, and it will happen. We, I've seen it. I don't think I've ever seen it fail when people persevered, and it's so painful to watch people struggle and go back out, and we've all seen them. And I wish I could wave my magic wand and give them my experience and say, this is what will happen if you persevere. And but I can't do that. All I can do is be a good example in Alcoholics Anonymous, and hope that they find the solution through perseverance. So it's a great topic. It's been covered very well and eloquently so far. So with that, I will pass. Thank you.
Thanks, Marty. And then we have our tireless volunteer at Intergroup, Sprout.
Oh, hi, my name is Sprout. I'm an alcoholic. I think prior to my experience in AA, I was of two minds. I was of equal extremes of blind perseverance to certain things and then just quitting. I could quit a friendship, a job, a school. I could quit things if they didn't serve me, or I could hold on like a pit bull, just never letting go. And so what I seek today is, I think, perseverance with discernment. So not blind perseverance, that doesn't serve me today. But, it says in that paragraph in the big book about step 10, it says the word continue 4 times. And I believe our literature can be quite redundant because I might not pick up on something the first time it's said. So they say it over and over again with the hope people like me will notice it at some point. And so I do want to continue, working the steps. I do want to continue not drinking a day at a time. I do want to continue, having a relationship with my higher power. But it says continue, but then it also says watch for, the selfishness, this dishonesty, all that kind of stuff too. And how can the watching, there's a pause in there for me. Like the continue, it feels, this is just the way I interpret it. It feels like it's action, it's action, it's action. But the watching is the pause. And that's what perseverance with discernment is for me today. I'm not going to just, what did your parents say when you were a kid? Well, if someone jumps off a cliff, are you just going to follow them? That kind of thing. I'm not just going to persevere because other people are doing something. I'm going to examine it. I'm going to examine something and see if it's the right choice for me. And there's a quick little story I'll tell you. There's a, fancy, totally talented pianist who plays this beautiful music, and everybody comes to their concert, and someone says to them, how do you handle the notes so well? How are you so good at playing the notes? And the pianist says, It's not the notes that are so wonderful. Anyone can play the notes. It's the pauses between the notes where the magic happens. And I think that's for me today. It's when I remember to pause. It's when I remember to ask for help. It's when I remember to listen and then take the appropriate action where I succeed, where I am reaching the potential my higher power has for me. So for me, I guess that's how I strive for it to work. I'm not saying it works every day all the time, but I will say that it's perseverance, but with discernment, not blindly following, which is what I used to do, or just up and quitting, which is what I used to do as well. So that's my take on it. I don't know where that came from, but that's my take. Thank you.
Thank you, Sprout. And then on the topic of perseverance, we have a member of Alcoholics Anonymous here that's persevered for 89 years.
That's beautiful.
Josephine, any you want to chime in?
Sure. I'm Josephine, alcoholic, and this is interesting discussion meeting. I was starting off by thinking, oh, I'm not very familiar with perseverance, but then I started to think about how back in the day when in 1972 my husband died and left me with a 8-year-old, 6-year-old, and 4-year-old daughters, and I persevered. I mean, I made sure, and my stepson, who was 16 at the time, and I got up every day and made that oatmeal and got them out the door. And then I would hang onto the door frame and say, "How could you be gone?" Because I really loved that man. But anyhow, moving up to today, I've been in the program for 5 years. And when I came in, I was definitely riding a pink cloud, for sure. Just it was so wonderful to be able to come to meetings where people hugged you and people were honest about their innermost feelings. And I think that now I'm having more trouble being perseverant, or I don't know, that's not a word. I'm kind of like adjusting to what do I want to participate in and what I don't want to participate in. And I'm kind of tailoring it more to suit myself or something. I mean, I recently started going up to the detox center, but then I decided, no, it wasn't right for me. I got too tired, and so I guess I'm old. I am old, and I'll have to give myself a break. But I'm very much, I love the program, and I feel very convinced that it's helping me and other people are helping me to see more about myself. And so I'm going to persevere. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Josephine, and thank you for joining us today. And I can attest to Nancy persevering at least one relationship for over 40 years.
Hi, I'm Nancy and I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, stumble or two in there, but perseverance did win out. Thank you everybody for your reflections on perseverance. They're all just helped me just widen my understanding of it. And so thank you so much for that. You know, I think that, well, first of all, I cannot find my Language of the Heart book anywhere, but I looked it up online, and they don't have, there's not a particular little essay on perseverance in particular, but the comment was that perseverance is is woven throughout our whole program. Even in our little slogans like keep coming back and one day at a time, they all speak to this idea and this principle of perseverance. I think of the lines in the book, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. They just begged us. Why would they beg us? They begged us because the problem had been solved in them. And so they really wanted us to experience that same thing. And without perseverance, that likely won't happen. And perseverance, it can sound like, even the word like severe is in that word, perseverance. It sounds like it could be a hard thing. And I think the only hard thing about it, and I am one that I made it hard. I made it hard for myself for a long time. And that was because of, as people have pointed out, different standards of perfectionism. Don't try if you can't do it perfectly. And I'll never even know what could be accomplished if there's no try, right? If no effort is made. And so this idea of persevering, like the drink problem, that was not a problem very quickly, right? I wasn't suffering from withdrawals from alcohol. But emotional sobriety, that was quite a different subject and remained a snag. Anything that needs to come up, as you mentioned, Josephine, like our stuff is going to come up as long as we are here. In that little article that I read, it wasn't from the Language of the Heart, but there's a essay in the Language of the Heart called The Greatest Gift. And Bill talks about, and this is a quote, that we are offered a new life of endless possibilities if we are willing to continue our awakening. So that kind of reminded me of that word that came up for you, Sprout, of continue. If I continue my awakening, if I persevere in that, that means for me today that I will persevere when my reaction to anyone or anything, any event or circumstance or person, a glance, a glance from the breeze blows a way that I think it shouldn't. If my reaction is anything, it is that snag, then I am willing to take full responsibility of that and to ask, as we've talked about here today, to ask how can I see this truly? This is coming from me. And so I really want to know how to see this in a way that continues this awakening, which that might sound like a far off pie in the sky word, but in a way that provides me understanding and acceptance of whatever's going on. I'm not going to like everything that's happening, but I do believe, and through perseverance and so much trial and error, trial and error itself is another definition of perseverance. And why we keep showing up. We show up to meetings, we show up for each other, we show up for these workshops, we show up. And you know what? Sometimes we don't show up, and everything can be used, right? I love that everything, the higher power can use everything. And the higher power doesn't use it in a way that embarrasses me or criticizes me or judges me. That's how I would know, to pause and to let that go, to ask for my thinking to be corrected instead of feeling like, oh, one more trip to the woodshed, right? It's this whole idea of God as this, punishing judge, that did not help my perseverance. Like under the lash of alcoholism, that was the other kind of perseverance, right? The kind of perseverance where I did keep trying, everything, even prior to alcohol, trying anything I could to produce an effect that I thought should occur. And as long as it benefited me in whatever crazy way that I thought it should, and consistently, I wouldn't feel good about it. Depression could be the result or the effect of that, or anger or isolation or withdrawal, until that self-will built up again, and yet another assault on life. And so it was really in Alcoholics Anonymous that I was able to learn about a process of learning how to be honest and learning how to pause, as you mentioned, Sprout, and learning to check my reactions and taking this full responsibility and finding that, and not even perfectly. Nothing is asked of us to be perfect. In our steps, it tells us that we are just asked to do our best, to allow that opening, and that allows higher power to come in and provide that insight or that inspiration. And that's when, at least for me, that's when I know I'm on the right path, and I know I'm not alone, and I know that this works. All right, I'm done. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Nancy. And Lara's out in the other room. I'm not sure if she can come in for a minute. Whoop, there she is.
Here I am. My name's Lara. I'm an alcoholic. And I'm not sure what's been said already because I've been a little busy out here in the office, but it must have been said that sometimes my perseverance has been mistaken for stubbornness. And I don't know. I feel like Alcoholics Anonymous is full of the power driving personalities. Our co-founder Bill W. being the prime example of that, and where we would be if he wasn't persevering in his power driving tendencies. I don't know that we'd be here. So I think, much like other character defects, the power driving needs to be balanced. And used for the good. So yes, I can say with confidence that I don't know what gave me the willingness to persevere with school, but I came into this program a high school dropout, and now I have some degrees because I persevered through school. And now, I've been able to stay sober for a period of time because I've persevered through very difficult circumstances and mundane circumstances, and all of life, all the things, all the circumstances that life has to offer. So far, knock on wood, I've been able to stay sober for been given the grace to stay sober. And so I think the balance then is not so much I can persevere, it's it's learning to let go, when to let go and what to let go of, as has been mentioned already. That is the trick. So perseverance, one of the things I excel at. Thank you.
Thanks, Lara.
Thanks, Lara. And thank everybody again for joining us. And we'll hope that in the future, somebody that listens to this may get something out of it. And we typically close with the responsibility prayer. And that starts off with
Who's responsible?
Marty did it. I am responsible.
When anyone, anywhere
Anywhere
reaches out for help,
I
I
want
want
the
the
hand
hand of
of
AA always
to be
there.
there.
And we'll,
And for
And for
that,
that,
I am
I am
responsible.
responsible.
and we'll preserve that. Hey, thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good job.
Lovely.